Hello, today is Wednesday, the 5th of March. I hope everyone is doing okay. I lost my voice last night, finally got it back. Hope everyone's doing a bit better than that. So, what a week this is, really. It seems to me that Mr. Trump says the most outrageous things, and then quite a lot of what he does and says is wound back. And that's certainly happening with the tariffs. So I don't think these tariffs are going to be fixed immediately, though. When you look at the news of what's going on, it looks like Trudeau and Trump are going to talk today. As I said before, they're not due to publish the details even of the tariffs before tomorrow. And then President Sheinbaum of Mexico today said that she thought she's due to speak to Trump on Thursday morning, and she thinks that it could be resolved by the end of the week, by Sunday. So I don't expect an immediate lifting of the tariffs. It seems, though, that the market is expecting that, and certainly Mr. Lutnick has been very busy winding back some of the tariffs. He's talking about April 2nd for some, and that's pretty interesting considering a lot of these 25% tariffs were supposed to start yesterday. He's also winding back the tariffs for firms which are USMCA compliant, which he seems to be pulling back on the auto industry. Certainly we've seen a really big, 5% plus bounce in General Motors and stuff. So I think the market is betting that these 25% tariffs won't be applied to the Canadian auto or auto parts industry, which will be a big relief in Ontario. He's also had the neck, to contact people like Doug Ford in Ontario and told him to calm down the tensions which is ridiculous when they didn't start it, and trying to de-escalate and pull it back. Well, I'm pretty glad to see Canada is standing up for itself. I really don't understand why you have a trade agreement that you take months to negotiate, Congress passes, and then you take a wrecking ball for it. I understand the need for action on fentanyl, but, to wreck the market and your trade partner, your closest trade partner, just seems nuts to me. So in the light of that, there's quite a lot going on. There's also a lot of winding back going on about the Trump crypto summit on Friday. So these are the attendees so far. We can see Binance and Coinbase and Ethereum and Solana and Cardano and Ripple. And so, quite an interesting group of bigwigs. What we are seeing at the moment is, after a quite interesting backlash against the inclusion of those tickers, Ripple and ADA, and including in the crypto reserve, there seems to be a winding back that it's going to be, back to being a specific Bitcoin reserve and different rules for other crypto assets. I'm starting to not believe what's said at all on that Truth Social platform. As I said yesterday, I think that his kids, or people, insiders are, you can mention those tickers there, pump those assets, and then, not actually be held to account. I think I wouldn't be surprised if his kids are behind that Truth Social account. But to be honest, personally, I don't understand the need for a strategic Bitcoin reserve or crypto reserve. If we look at what other assets the United States hold strategic reserves of, they hold strategic reserves of grains, cheese, gold, petroleum and medicines, and they do this to ensure supply stability in times of shortages and kind of market stability. I don't understand what the point of a crypto Bitcoin reserve would be. Are we going to use it to bring stability to the Bitcoin price, make it more enticing for institutional investors? I see this chart that they have published that it's to supercharge the US dollar and pay down the national debt. So for me, I'm starting to think it's all bullshit, to be honest. But the most interesting thing they're going to talk about on Friday for me, and it's also non-farm payroll, which of course nothing that happens in non-farm payroll is as important as what is going on with tariffs at the moment. And in Bitcoin, of course, the strategic Bitcoin reserve is going to be the most important thing. But the most important thing I think I'm looking for an announcement about is where are the Bitcoin going to come from? Is he announcing a big lump of money for them to, taxpayer money for them to buy Bitcoin with? That would be pretty bullish. Or is he just going to put all of the crypto that has been confiscated by the United States into Bitcoin, into a strategic reserve? In other words, they're not buying any in the open market. So for me, that's going to be kind of the most important message. Remember last time they had a big Bitcoin get together, was the night they launched the Trump meme coin and gave a whole bunch of that to insiders who attended. So it's all, I really hope this is less grifty, but I don't know. So we've got all that to come. The most interesting thing I think in other markets going on at the moment is the wild sell-off in the US dollar. If we take a look at the US dollar today, this is the dollar chart. This is a weekly chart of the dollar from the high at mid-January, and you can see this week with these tariff stuff has been a absolute cratering. In terms of daily chart, we are trading back underneath the daily 200 moving average, and this candlestick pattern, unless we close green or we close back above with a long tail back above this 200 moving average, this is a very bearish candlestick pattern, and it points to at least another day lower in the US dollar. The good news about that is a little bit of liquidity for crypto assets, which I think helps lift not all of the boats, but a few of them, and that's certainly what we're seeing. So let's talk about the pattern that we are in Bitcoin. I said before that if we go all the way back to this low that we made in 2022, if you look at the short-term swings, we very cleverly, made, each time you can look at a 5-wave swing, we very interestingly made a 50% retrace. And in this case, for example, this first one off the low here was a textbook 50% retrace back to the 200-day moving average, and we carried on higher. When we look at this swing that we made here and we measure this most recent swing, this again, corrective, overlapping, pullback to the 50% and carried on higher. And we've continued to do that in these bigger swings in Bitcoin ever since that 2022 low. So if I look at this swing, we didn't in fact even come back that far. This was a 38.2 retrace, but this most recent swing then before the one that we are in, which is from the January 2024 low to the high that we made in March. Again, first bounce back to the 50% and a really big bounce, 50% up, 50% back, and then we saw another leg higher. These 50% retraces, these mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting, and then we see which way we break out. So from the low that we made in August last year to this high, we've pulled back to this 50%, we've rallied 50%, we've pulled back, and here we are sideways in the middle. I think that there is a pretty good chance that we retest these highs at 95,000 and potentially, as I said before, another big equal measured move bounce in Bitcoin and back test of that 100,000 level. The problem is, when you look at this and you think, is this the big correction? Is the low in here at this test of 80,000, or are we likely to make another lower low? And one of the ways you can tell is how we rally. And if we look at this rally that we had at the start of the week from Friday's low and this rally over the weekend, it's pretty clear that this was only 3 waves, which to me looks corrective. Now, sometimes, you can see kind of a leading diagonal and it can turn into something bigger. But at the moment, I have to say, this says to me that potentially this low that we made on Friday at the end of February isn't in, and we at the very least could retest it and potentially see another swing lower. So the best we can hope for is a kind of this turning into a bigger zigzag. And at the moment, from this low here, unfortunately, it's not looking super bullish. Now, I think therefore, given this price action from last Friday, that potentially, if the tariffs get lifted or don't happen in such large size, or if they announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve on Friday, maybe they announce a strategic Bitcoin reserve and then they don't announce they're going to go buy any extra Bitcoin, but they're just in fact going to put what the government holds into it. I don't think it's going to be so bullish, and I think that we could from there see another leg lower. So I'm seeing how this unfolds. Now, one of the problems I have is when I look at this, it's really not clear that the pattern that we're in, and I would not be surprised from here if we end up retesting these lows and retesting 80,000 depending on how it goes. So for me, this is not a sell or a buy at the moment. It's a little bit of sideways consolidation. I would expect when this bottoms that we see another leg higher. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it came all the way up and back tested that 100,000 level. We may even see kind of a rising wedge or diagonal here before another leg lower, but I'm not sure, unfortunately, that this correction in Bitcoin is over based on the price action so far. And I would not be surprised to see at the minimum we retest this 79,000 level, unfortunately. Now, not all charts look that terrible, and I have to say that Microstrategy is looking really, really bullish. And the reason why I like Microstrategy as well, not only have we pulled back to the 200-day moving average, just like Bitcoin, but if I measure from the high that we made in November, this is a textbook 3-wave ABC, and this swing here is 61.8 of the first swing, which means if we come back and retest these lows, or we are unable to hold 245, 244.98 in fact is the level, and if we close underneath that and we lose this 200-day moving average, then we're likely to see a bigger corrective pattern all the way down to 146. But from here it looks pretty bouncy. So for me, how are we going to know if we are going up again? There's a few simple things that I like to look at. One thing that we can tell ever since we got underneath it in January is that this daily 20 moving average in Microstrategy has been resistance. Literally every day that we've tried it, we have not been able to close above it. So the first thing I'm going to say is a close and hold above this 20-day moving average will be our first bullish signal. And that 20-day moving average today is at 293.8. So that's what we need to close above for us to confirm this as a bottom and be moving higher again. Another way, when you see a big 3-way equal measured move like this, back above that 236 fib is quite often a bullish signal. That's at 305. So I would say, this is really kind of where our resistance is and where we need to get above. And until then, we are just trading sideways, trying to make a base. And this is not, the bullish reversal that we want to see yet. If we look at this on a lower time frame as well, interestingly, that 305 fib level, if we were to make a 3-wave equal measured move, that would put us back testing this from underneath. So important resistance in Microstrategy, holding above 305 though. The one thing about when you make a big ABC like this is the most common retrace is actually a 786 in a big 3-wave. So above 305 I would be looking all the way up to 387, but I think we really need the Nasdaq to rally for that to happen. The correlation between Bitcoin and the Nasdaq is strong, and we really kind of need these really nasty risk-off moves to be over for that to happen. So that's where we are with those. Some of these other crypto are looking pretty interesting. But first off, let's talk about Ethereum, which held support pretty nicely. Now, there's a few things we could, and by that I mean we've held the August lows here in what looks to me like a big ABC sideways correction. We double topped, and now we could argue that we're trying to double bottom at the bottom of this sideways range. We could make this really simple. We are back underneath this 200-day moving average. We can see previously, 200-week moving average. And we can see previously in ETH when we've done that, it's been resistant. Sometimes, you know, for 3 or 4 weeks or a few months, but when we get above it, we see a much bigger move. Above it here, bigger move, here, bigger move, and it's pretty good support and resistance. So here you can see from August all the way until October, that was where our support was. And so this 200-week moving average now becomes our resistance at 2478, 2478. Basically, we need to recover 2500, and holding above that, we could argue that we are going to see a much bigger bounce and potentially back to the top of the range. I talked about this as perhaps, you know, we could be seeing a big harmonic pattern here, or a big wave 3 even beginning. If we look back to this low, we could argue that this is, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up and 3 waves back, and therefore the next swing higher in ETH could be the big one and takes us at a minimum, you know, to new highs. If we measure from this low to this high, again, first target from this sideways would be a retest of this sideways range at 4,000 in ETH, and if we hold above 3,940, next upside target is for ETH is 5,000, which is where these two swings would be equal. So pretty interesting if we can recover this weekly 200 moving average. Not necessarily, in fact, this chart actually is more encouraging to me than Bitcoin is, to be honest. I think we have much better upside potential in this one. So how are we going to know here at the lows we bottom? Well, we know that 2,500 and that weekly 200 moving average is it. And if we look at what we're doing here, low time frame on the hourly, this is another one where very nice double bottom off the lows, broke the highs of this sideways range on the hourly. We've at least, you know, we've well gone beyond our double bottom target short term here on the hourly. The problem is what we need this to be is at least another leg higher and not just a 3-wave correction at the moment, and start regaining some of these hourly moving averages. If I look at this on the 4-hour, from this high to this low, you can see kind of we're a little bit struggling in the middle. If we look at this as a from this high to low, once again that deadly 50% retrace level, which is also a little bit of support and resistance, is causing the problem today in ETH, 2,271. I think if we can recover 2,271, that will give us that test of 2,500 that we are looking for. But whilst we stay underneath it and underneath these lower time frame moving averages, haven't quite got the bottom that we need to see yet in ETH either, unfortunately. Litecoin was one of my bigger disappointments. As you know, I thought on the weekly this Litecoin chart was set up really nicely. If we look at this, I like how we were holding above these weekly moving averages and no breakout from this sideways consolidation that we've been in since November, and here we are back, you know, in the middle. And potentially, you know, the problem with these 3-wave corrections is they quite often turn into sort of double zigzags or bigger ones, and that unfortunately is what it feels like we're doing with Litecoin. Plus, somebody forgot to mention Litecoin on that strategic crypto reserve, unfortunately. So, you know, here we are at the sideways range. We're holding above the 200-day moving average, holding above the 200-week moving average on a back test. Potentially this is a three-wave correction after, you know, when I look back to the low at the beginning of the month, this is of February, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and potentially this is a deep three-wave correction, and the next swing higher is about to begin. So if all of those other, you know, cryptos that we're watching take a ride higher, a rocket ship higher, this one is one of the ones where I think that we could definitely do that. You know, this 786 fib retrace of this big rally, the 5-wave rally that we've had, the 200-day moving average, these previous lows, we could see it so far. Haven't got it, but I'm definitely watching it. And when I look at this on the hourly, I was looking at this last night and I was thinking, kind of quite tempting bottoming pattern. But you know, a downtrend is lower highs and lower lows. You got to flip it by taking out that previous swing high, and that's kind of where we're stuck here in Litecoin. Are we making a bottoming pattern? Potentially, but that's the kind of resistance level that's causing this, keeping us in this downtrend at 106 in Litecoin. So I think if we can hold above 106, we look pretty good for more upside and another go at this top of the range resistance, and hopefully this time a big wave 3, but no sign of that bottom yet until we have a short lower time frame reversal, unfortunately. So what about Ripple? Let's take a look at where we are with Ripple, and this is one of those don't diddle in the middle charts. When I posted this chart before, this is a daily chart of Ripple, and we were looking to hold above this resistance level at 1.95 and keep going higher. And if I zoom out to the weekly, this 1.95 level comes from this high that we made in 2021, and really the kind of lows of this sideways range that we are in. So if we count 5 waves up from the last summer's low, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was a back test of this wave forward. This is a very common support level to pull back to. We've also got the weekly 20 moving average. For a whole number of reasons, this is a really good spot. However, what we seem to be doing is making lower highs and higher lows and coiling up, and here we are in the middle of this range. Now, I thought this was a Gartley pattern, and the reason is that this made from the low that we made at the beginning of February an ABC equal measured move, and if I measure from this high to low, this was a 7, this bounce was to the 61.8, this was to the 786. So if I draw that in, you can see those fib levels here. When you reverse at a 786 fib, your first target is back to the 38.2, which is where we met. This is the 2.39, and then you usually from here have a little bounce into the middle, and you kind of decide which way next. So this is coiling up in the middle of this sideways pattern, and I don't know that this is going to get resolved until we find out what the future is at the end of this week for Ripple. Short term, you can see 4-hour moving averages are all bunching up flat. There's no trend here, and I just am one of those don't diddle in the middle. And the thing with a coiling up pattern like this is it looks like a pennant, and if it's going to be that, it'll be 5 waves, and so that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before it's over, and we are on our way higher again. A triangle or pennant like this, if it fails, turns into a flag pattern, so then it becomes an equal measured move. So this would be like this, and then this, and then this before we're done. A little bit of a false breakdown, very Bitcoin, and I don't know which way it's going to go, to be honest here, so I think we have to wait and see. Certainly breaking this back above this 3 level and the reversal Gartley pattern level here makes us wrong, and this then, we would then be looking for new highs and a bigger zigzag, because you can't argue that this wasn't kind of three waves corrective, right? It was. But what this then becomes is a bigger move. So this would be our, so this three waves that we've had as our first swing. So we measure the whole distance, like from this low to high like this, and then from the pullback we will see, you know, another here in the middle, another leg higher and new highs. But yeah, I'm pretty neutral, unfortunately, Ripple, until this is resolved. Okay, I've got a couple of chart requests. We'll take a look at those. First one we're going to look at is Avalanche, which is here. Now, I'm going to start with the weekly on this one. Now, clearly, we are at a pretty interesting support and resistance level, and for a couple of weeks, really a month, you know, 4 weeks of doji sideways, trying to make a base here, and the market tried really hard. I think if we were to look at this, the market was trying to make this first swing up, three ways back, and another leg higher. So far, though, it's got a great level. And you can look, you know, if we do this as an equal measured move from this high to low, you can see for 4 weeks we went sideways. It was 22.86. And then this week, with everything, all the craziness, we lost it at the beginning of the week. And so here we are back underneath it again. So for me, you know, that's kind of one of those levels we really need to get back above, and that weekly 20 moving average. Otherwise, we are looking at, yeah, just sideways at potentially a support level, but I think potentially we're going to see a bigger pullback and potentially a retest of the lows at 8.6. So I'm going to say that this 20 level is pretty important support for AVAX, because if we were on a lower time frame, if we look at this on the hourly, it's looking a little bit flaggy, isn't it? So, you know, if I bought a new position here, certainly if this is starting to look like a three wave move, and we are headed low and rolling over, so I'd probably get out. But if we were to get stuck underneath this level, unfortunately, that 8 is going to be, and the retest of the lows, this would be where, if we look at it on the daily, these two swings are equal, 8.61, and a retest of those lows. So I think it's quite important that AVAX in dollar terms holds this 20 level. Otherwise, more pain to come, unfortunately, for this one. Now, we're in a market where, to be honest, this thing at the end of the week could float all the boats. Certainly, you know, I think Microstrategy, and I think some, you know, some tech stocks look pretty bullish to me. I think we could see a tide that floats all the boats, and if that's the case, we will see a much bigger bounce here in AVAX. But we really need to start flipping this trend, and on the daily we need to take out this high here, the most recent one, and then, you know, we can look at buying pullbacks and say that the bottom is in, which I don't see this as being next. Now, not everything looks horrible. If you are looking at something smaller alts or meme coins, you know, again, we should get a really decent bounce, and I would try and buy strength. So buy coins that are outperforming on pullbacks. Yeah, let me know if there's anything you like. Good luck. Watch out. Be patient with the tariff news, and let's see what Friday